will also get reduced and your defects will fall. So that is what UiPath is stating, and I'm also going to prove you that. Now, before we jump into the code or into the demo to show you like how we are going to do that in our studio, I'm going to keep it very fun and easy so that anyone who has come here as a thing, they find this entire session very interactive and doesn't feel bored at all, like what has been showing. Okay. So I believe I'll take a pause here, and I believe that all of us has understood the reason of testing, why testing is needed, how we can do that. Now we are going to practically see that. We are actually jumping into the demo to see like, okay, how we can do that. Okay. Okay. So as a developer, our superhero is nothing but our UiPath Studio. Now, think of this UiPath test suite, okay, like your Avengers. Think it like your Avengers movie, okay. So there is a team of powerful tools, okay, as you see on the screen: the test manager, the UiPath Studio, the orchestrator, and the test robot. So this is the entire team, okay. But for us developers, if I consider the studio as our Iron Man, so this is our studio is our Iron Man, okay. So and we don't have to learn everything at once. So we just start with already what we know. So whatever we know, we are going to start with that particular base, okay. And then we are slowly going to see how as RPA team we can do the first line of like protection. What is the first line of stopping these errors? So it always starts with the developers. So we are going to primarily focus on UiPath Studio and how we are going to make this studio our superhero, okay. Okay, now to relate, I have just compared the entire thing that we are going to learn here today with the Ironman thing. The testing package is your Ironman suit. Your workflows are the gadgets of Ironman. Your test case templates is nothing but that AI assistant which helps you build a correct test case. Your test case is a functional gadget. Your test data are the different energy modes with which I'm going to test my test case. When you have multiple gadgets, you combine them to create your arsenal of energy modes, and that is your test set. Your activity coverage is like when you test your gadget, you see that which part of your gadget performed or functioned correctly and which did not. So that is your activity coverage. If you're having a simulated battle mode, that is your mock testing, which we are going to see tomorrow. This mock testing and execution template are a part of your integration testing, which you're going to see it tomorrow. And your execution template is like you're testing your whole suit in a real time mission. So that is what we are going to see. But today we'll limit ourselves till activity coverage, and we are going to see like how everything is working, okay. With that said, okay, let's go and first build the suit, okay. So you have your studio. Now we know that without installing the testing package, okay, we don't get the powers of that particular suit, right? So everything starts with installation of the package, and I'm pretty sure that all of us knows like how to install a package, right? So we go here, okay, we go to our design thing, okay, then we go to our manage packages, okay. You go packages, and then what you do is you slowly start installing your testing package, okay. So you go there and you'll search for your testing package, which I've already installed, okay. And then slowly what happens is you get all your packages, and you can your UiPath test thing is ready, okay. So the package that you need to install is your UiPath testing activities. So this is what you need to install in your studio. So once you install your studio has the power of all the testing capabilities that it requires, okay. Now if I go to the activities panel and if I search for test, you see all these activities start getting populated here. So you see that every activity has been populated here. Now this activities, so you see that all these activities gets populated when you have your package installed. Today, in the interest of the time, I'm not going to show you how what is the functionality of each of these activities, because all of us will have the link and it is pretty easy. When this particular video that or the session that I'm taking today is going to get published into the YouTube, I'll share you the GitHub link where I've just created a PDF file explaining about each of these activities. Okay, so this you'll be able to clearly understand how all these activities work, and this file will be available to all of you. So for now, you just understand that When you have the package, it gives you all these particular activities, and the most important activities that we are going to use is nothing but our verification activities. So that is what we are going to do, or we are going to use. Okay. Okay. So now, coming to the workflows. So before we actually build a gadget, we actually need to have a blueprint of that gadget, right? So let's take a simple business use case that my user has given me. So my user says that I need to calculate the remainder of two numbers, okay, so that he can handle both valid and invalid inputs correctly. And these are the business rules that he has given. So if the numerator or the denominator is negative, you should have a business exception. If both numerator and denominator are positive, it should return you the remainder of two numbers. Okay. And if the denominator is zero, then you should actually throw a divide by zero error. Okay. And these are the arguments that your process needs. Okay. So if you see here, I've just designed the workflow here. So if you see here, if the numerator or the denominator is negative, then it goes and throws a business exception. Positive, calculates the remainder. If it fails because of a divide by zero error, it rethrows that exception, and if it's successful, it ends. So exactly this is what I have actually built in my studio. So if you see here, I've just created a very simple use case. So, and I think all of you are able to follow that whatever I've given here is, if there is a system exception, then what happens. So this is what is a very simple workflow. See the arguments thing, then you'll see that I've created exactly the same sort of arguments that I've mentioned there on the screen. So all arguments, everything is ready. So my workflow or the blueprint is ready. Now, if my blueprint is ready, okay, now it's time for me actually create a test case. Now, when I say that I need to create a test case, okay, okay. So here, what you see here is like, consider like that. Now all of us nowadays, we use AI, we use chat gpt for everything. Now, even for writing a small email, we use chat gpt. And why do we use chat gpt? Because it makes it better, it keeps it clean, clear, and easy to read. That's why we use it, right? Same goes with a test case. So when you're creating a test case, it has to be very clear, and there should be enough clarity for anyone to understand that what you have done there. And UiPath says there is a template which can actually help you to do that. And that template is inbuilt within the studio. Okay. And they call it as BDD, or behavioral development template. Okay. And that has three sections. One is given, one is when, and there is the then section. Now, what happens in the given section? In the given section, you have all your preconditions, like whatever the preconditions or the conditions in the initial conditions are there, that everything goes into the given section. When will actually invoke your workflow. So whatever the workflow that you have created, that is there in the when section. The then section actually validates your outcome. Like what is the expected out? Like you have given seven as a numerator and 3 as a denominator, then your remainder should be 1, right? So that is the outcome that you are going to validate. Okay, so your workflow should actually match with your input. So that is your then section. So very simple. So UiPath has already given you a template with 3 sections, so that your test case is very clean and clear. That's what they have mentioned here, and this is what your given, when, and then section does. Okay. So let's go to the studio here, and we'll see one of the test case. Okay. So I have created all the test cases in the interest of time, but what I'll do is I'll just show you how to create a test case. So you just need to right click here. It's very easy. Okay. Just right click, create a test case. Okay. Then you name your test case, whatever the name you want to do. And you see there is a template, predefined template is already given. So there is a BDD test case template. So you just need to select this BDD. Okay. You select this BDD and just say click on create, creating a temporary test case. Now you see that it has three sections. One is given, it's an empty sequence, there is nothing inside it. Then you have the when section, which by default invokes your workflow, which I already said that it is going to invoke your workflow. And then there is the then section, it is also an empty sequence, right? So what your actually is your test case, your test case is nothing but a simple XAML which actually invokes your workflow. So if I delete all these sequences, consider that I've deleted all these sequences, then what am I left with? I'm just left with the invoke activity, right? So it's nothing but a simple XAML file which actually invokes your workflow. So that is what is your test case. But the three sections has been created so that it gives you clarity in how we need to work. Okay, so this is in simple terms is your test case. Now let me show you the proper test case that I have created using this particular template. Okay, so this is the test case that I have given. Okay, so in the given section, what I've done is I've simply printed my condition. Okay, what is the numerator I'm getting? What is the denominator is there? What is the remainder I'm expecting? Okay, what is the scenario type that I'm expecting? Say if I have given 7 3 and my remainder is 1, then it's a successful scenario. We have seen the business rules, right? So it's a successful scenario, and so my scenario type will be successful, and the exception message is going to be blank because there is no exception, right? Same in case of a business exception. If either the numerator or the denominator is a negative number, then your scenario type gets changed to a business exception, and your exception message will be your business exception message, whatever the client has given you. And in the same way, if your denominator is 0, then it throws a system exception, so your scenario type is system exception and your exception message. Now, for a system exception, we cannot validate our exception message can be any random message which dynamically gets generated, right? But as long as your scenario type is correct, you can expect ki, okay, my code is working correct because this is what I'm expecting and this is what I'm getting, right? So like that. So these are the scenarios what I've these are my preconditions. It's just a simple log message which I'm printing here. What is there in the when section? When section, I'm invoking my workflow, but what I've done is I've just put it inside a try catch block, and whatever the error is coming, I'm just storing that error in this particular variable. So it's a very simple thing that I've done here. Nothing, I've just included it into a try catch block and updated this particular variable here. So that is your when section. Okay, and in your then section, what I've done is I've done my validations. So if there is no exception, okay, then it's a successful scenario. See, I'm just validating my using the verification activities. I'm just validating. So this variable, whatever the scenario type that I am expecting, is success or not. Okay, and whatever the I am expecting it to have the same reminder I'm getting here or not. So that is your this is the successful scenario conditions. Then if my exception type is business, then I'm again using this verification activities to validate if it is a business exception, and if it is a business exception, then what is the business exception. And same for your system exception. So you can see that I have a system exception and I'm just checking that, okay, I did I receive a system exception or not. So very simple, right? So these are the three things that I've done. Now my code is following all the best practices and it looks pretty neat and clean. So that is what UiPath is saying, that your test case should have this basic BDD template, which has this given when and then section. So you do all your verification in the then section. When you invoke your workflow, given is your preconditions, right? So this is what overall your BDD is, right? So we have created our test case. Okay, our test case is ready. Now it's time for us to actually go ahead and test our data or test our test case for this particular workflow, right? So now this is the part you will when you read your suit documentation, you will always come across something called as, you'll hear the term called as data driven testing. Now whatever I'm going to show you is all a part of your data driven testing, right? So I'm going to show you different sources from where I can actually store my data, or I can populate my test case data or the test data. I can keep my test data, right? So first we'll go with the very simple one, that is files. Okay, so I am going to store all my test data into a file, and I'm going to do that, right? So but before I do that, I need to create that file. Okay, and while creating that file, you'll have to understand what I'm doing here, right? So when I created this test case, I have created all the arguments. Like, okay, I've created all the arguments, and all these arguments should be in direction. You think like you know the answer, right? So you want to validate your answer with the outcome, with your dynamic outcome. So all your answers, you need to pass it to this particular test case. So everything is in the in direction. Okay, because it is going to validate the actual answer or the runtime answer with your answers, right? So all your answers are in the in direction, right? Now here I want you to focus on one thing. You see the argument name. Okay, so I have this all these argument names here. Now all these argument names, what I've done is I've created an Excel file. Okay, you can see that I've created Excel file. If I open this particular Excel file, okay, you see that all my argument names are here. It should be an exact match. That's how the binding between your test case and your test data happens, right? So you keep all your arguments here. And now you see that I've stored only successful scenarios here. I've not stored any business exception or any system exception for now in this particular power source. Okay, you think that this is my source of data, and in this particular data, I've just stored success scenario. The reason why I did it like that will you'll get your answers in the next 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, but for now you just understand that I have just made different, I've used different sources for different kinds of data. So my first data is all with successful scenarios, and I've just stored all these results here. Okay, so so this is the very important thing whenever you're using a file. Okay, whenever you're using a file, you have to remember that this criteria should match, otherwise you may end up having problems, okay, for that data binding to happen. Okay, so I've done that. Now I can also store the same thing in JSON format. Okay, so say I open this particular JSON. You see the same data, I've just stored it in JSON format. So all my data are here. Exactly the same data that you saw in the Excel is here. Okay, but it is in JSON format. So there are two different file formats which I can use. Okay, now how do you add this test data to this particular test case? Very simple once again, right? First time you right clicked on this workflow and you created the test case. Now you have the test case. So now what you need to do is you need to right click on the test case and you just need to say update test data or add test data. So let's say update test data. I'm just clicking on update test data. Now what I do is I'll just select the file option. Okay, I'll click here. Okay, then I'll go to that particular folder where I have my file. Okay, so I'll just select this particular Excel. I'll just say open. Now as I say open, you see all the data got loaded here. Very easy. Right click, add your test data. You have your test data here, and then you click on your import button. So the moment you click on import, all this data gets loaded here. So let's click on import. Okay, uh, okay, fine. I think there is some issue with this. We are always fe- uh, open to surprises, so there is some surprise here, but okay. So once you click here, you'll see that all your test data gets loaded. Okay, my test data have been loaded here. So as you see here, my I have my all my test data loaded here. Okay, so you have your test data loaded here. Now I'll tell you what is the reason of this surprise. Okay, what happened is some 15-20 minutes back before the demo started, actually my studio got updated, and once it got updated, there were some packages which got loaded, and there was this activity coverage which I can show you here. Some of you might see this in your studio. Okay, so if I click on this image, you'll see that there is this activity coverage panel. Now for some reason this activity coverage panel got removed from here. I don't, my studio version got updated, and I think for that reason I'm getting some issues here. But once you try the same thing in your machine, I'm pretty sure you're not going to face all these issues because I've already tested all that. Okay, so you are, so once you have all that, you have your data here. Okay, you have your data, you keep your data loaded here. Now I have all my test cases here. Now I can test, I can run each of this scenario. You see whatever the scenarios that I loaded here is present here, it will start appearing here. Now you can individually test all this one by one. Say I'll click on this run button. Okay, if you see here, okay, it got executed. And now if I go to my output panel, and if I click on my test, you see that the verifications have passed. You can see that okay, I was expecting a successful scenario, success came. Okay, my reminder also matched with the expected reminder, so everything is everything has started working. Okay, so you can see that your test cases are working. So now if I want to test all these outcomes, what I can do is I can just select it here, and what I'll do is I'll click on run. I can also run all of them in one shot. Now see what is the advantage of that. If in real time we need to test it, how traditionally we do that, what we'll do is we'll do a read range of that particular workbook, then we'll do a for each loop, and inside the for each loop we'll be invoking our workflow, initializing our arguments, and then we'll do this thing. But here, with test case or a test data, you don't have to do that. You can simply do a right click, select your option, and all your data gets loaded. Now you don't need to create any for each or any other thing. You just simply individually test your details, or you can simply run this, and all your test cases get executed. Now coming back to your activity coverage. Okay, so if I had this activity coverage here, I could have shown you, when we see this particular flow chart, what it would have shown is the, the activity which got executed here. So if it is a successful scenario, then what gets executed? Obviously the first activity gets executed, this condition gets executed because it's a positive number, and it will go for calculating the remainder. Your try block gets executed, and your assign activity gets executed. Rest of the thing did not get executed, or because I don't have a scenario for that, right? So all other things would have appeared in red color, and the one which got tested would have appeared in green color. So this is what actually, if you see the studio coverage here, you'll be able to see like how these activities will get populated. Okay, so this is how actually your things get populated. So since my activity coverage panel is no more there, I'm not able to show it to you, but when you test it out, you'll be able to see it like that. So whichever gets executed comes in green color, and whichever is missing will appear in red color. So that is not, because I don't have a scenario for how we can do the same sort of a, we are already clear with how we can do it using files. Now not only files, I can store, I can also store my data inside data entities. Can store my thing. So let's do a test case for data entities. Now I have created this test case for data entities exactly in the same way like the files. I've just right click here, created my test case. After I got created my test case, I chose add test data. Okay, then when I chose test data, then I would have selected here data service. Okay, if I select this, you see, okay, I already have a data entity where I've stored all my records, and I'm saying that import. Okay, so now you'll see that all my data and all other things got imported. Okay, so this is what your data entities and all other things will do. Okay, okay, now with data entities you don't have to create all your input arguments. You see, by default one argument got created with the name calculate reminder system exception. Okay, now why this name came, how is this name coming, right? So that is an obvious question. So now what we do is, let me go back to my orchestrator. Okay, what I'll do is I'll just go to data fabric where I have my data entities. Okay, and I've created the same structure that I have in Excel. The only difference here, I stored all my system exceptions. So if I go to the data here, you see that I have these columns. Okay, and some, okay, for system exception. So I have it here because it's a sin. Obviously, some of the columns cannot calculate reminders blank, and the system exception message dynamically gets generated at runtime, right? So because the activity is automatically going to generate it, so it is blank. Okay, now you see that I've created all this system exception data here, and if you see the name here, it's given as calculate reminder system exception, and that is what is appearing here. So UiPath itself removes that underscore and all, but you can see that the name has appeared here. Now, why I did not have to create that arguments? Because all that column names are a part of this particular variable as an input property, just like how what you do in um, your transaction item dot specific content, something like that, right? Everything is a part of that. So if I, just to show you, I'll just select a message box. Okay. Uh, Okay, I believe a lot of thing has changed. So the interface has changed recently after that upgrade. So I'm just seeing many things which I'm not. Okay, fine. So what I can do to you here is, you see here, this thing is there, right? So once you have that variable, you just click on this dot. Okay, and then if you type here, you'll see this option. So that is the reason you don't have to create all the input arguments. It's one single variable which will have all your data, all your details will be there, right? So you don't have to worry about that. So it gets automatically, so everything gets automatically populated. You just need to invoke your details in different places. So your data entity thing is ready with your system uh, thing. Now if you click here, in the same way you see all your scenarios got populated here. Okay, so just click on here and you can test your things. Okay, so now I'm just testing all my system exceptions. So that's how all my system exceptions get stored. So now I've shown you two different mechanisms. Okay, if you want to store it in file, you can store it in file. Rest everything is same, identical. Okay, now here also all my scenarios got passed because I've done my workflow correctly. If I built my workflow correctly, everything is going to execute fine. System exception is going to behave like a system exception, right? So that's what is going to happen. So if you see here in my test, all my verifications got passed. Okay, so this is how you do it using a data entities. So you've seen using files, we have seen using data entities. Now the most important or the interesting thing is your autopilot, right? Where we make use of gen AI to do all that, right? So this is the third mechanism, like how you can do it. So I've just created a prompt. Okay, now what is left out? I've done successful, I've done system exception. Now I'm just left out with business exception scenario. So I'm just saying that, okay, generate me 5 test cases. Each test case should be a business exception scenario. And I've just mentioned that scenario, that either the numerator or the denominator or both should be negative number. And the business exception message should always be this. So this is the business, because my client would have mentioned me some business exception message. I've just shown my business exception message here. So all my business exception messages here. And then I'm saying that, okay, you need to have variations in your test data, and your scenario type is always business exception. So this is my prompt. So let me copy this particular prompt. Okay, and what I'll do is, when I create, or see, I have this test data, I'll just click on update test data. I hope I don't get any more surprise here. Let's see what else I see here. So I'm just copying my prompt here and I'm just saying, okay, generate my data. Okay, you see that all this data got dynamically generated, and whatever the prompt I mentioned, everything is here, right? Now see, this is such a useful feature. If you're a team lead or something and you want your junior to do some testing, he or she comes and says you that I have developed my code, right? But you are not 100% confident ki whether he has tested all your scenarios or not. You just give him this prompt and you say that generate your all your scenarios that you need. Okay, now he or she gets all your test data. You don't have to sit and even type all that. Everything is ready made. Now he or she runs it. If anything fails, any of the verification fails, automatically that person will understand ki where is the mistake in his code. He will immediately fix it. Second, if the activity coverage is that screen for, or the tab for activity coverage is there, he or she can also easily see that which part of the coverage is visible or which is not visible, right? So he or she can understand, okay, he or she can come to you and tell you that, okay, before the deployment happens, he or she tells you that, okay, I could not test this part of the scenario. So you as a lead tells him ki, okay, you don't have a scenario, I'm giving you this scenario, so that before it even goes to production and you get a surprise there, you can do all your activity testing and see how easy it is. Now previously, for doing some testing, or say we take timeline of 1 day 2 days or something, but if you know how to use test case, right, you can easily do it within 5 to 10 minutes. So within 5 to 10 minutes, see, I've shown you three different mechanisms of doing it, right? So if it takes you an hour or two to develop one of your XAMLs, then it will take hardly 15-20 minutes extra to do this testing and make sure that your product is completely safe, right? Before you get any surprise in the production. So this is what you can do here, and then you click on import, your data gets imported. So now I have my data imported here. So all my scenarios for business exceptions are here. So I'll just click on this test case. Okay, now you may see some difference in this test case and the other test case. Now what is the difference? You see a color change. Here it is blue, rest is gray. Now I'll tell you later why it is blue and the rest are gray. Okay, so let's test our scenarios using the autopilot. So I'll just running it. Okay, so you see all my scenarios got passed here, everything got executed correctly, and all my verifications would have also passed. So I was expecting business exception, I got business exception, three different mechanisms. Okay, and this entire thing is nothing but your data driven testing. So if you read the documentation and if you try to do it here, these are the mechanisms. There is one more mechanism. In fact, there is three more. Okay, now what are those three more? Okay, that you have. Let's do one thing. You can also create test data and test case simultaneously. Like, okay, so now what is this existing data? Now every time you ran this or you loaded this data, you have some data here stored in the memory of the studio. That is nothing but your existing data. Now if you see here, you see you got all the different I tried three different things. So you see all the three data mechanisms are present here. Calculate reminder from the file, for using the queue. If all these mechanisms are present here, okay, whatever you can use it. So that goes as your existing data. You have with autopilot file, you have seen data service, we have seen test data queue, we are going to see now, and auto generate. Now this auto generate functionality, it does not works as expected. You see that it randomly creates something, but it does not fill up all the other expected columns or something. So I think this is somewhere that UiPath will probably come up with a uh, upgrade or something like that, where it can calculate all these things. Edit row you can do here, you can update, you can edit your data. So those things are possible, okay, which you can do. So let's go to the queue thing. Okay, so now we are all familiar with queues, right? So in queue, as a basic RPA development, there are two different ways to load our data. Okay, so one is like add queue item. So in add queue item, what you do is you load only one item to the queue, whereas you have this bulk add queue item where you load multiple together to the queue in one shot, right? So to replicate that particular thing in the testing, you see, if I go to this activities panel and if I click on this test, I have two options. One is add test data queue item, so it will load you only one item to the queue. Okay, and then you have this bulk at test data queue item. So here what it will do is it will load multiple items to your queue. So how do you create a queue? So orchestrated. Okay, first let's create the queue, and then what is, we'll try to see how we are adding items to the queue and all that, right? So what you need to do is you need to go to the testing tab. You went to the testing tab, so you have an option called as test data queue, right? So then you need to click on this add test data queue. So you give a name of the queue. Now here you have to remember, for testing queue, you need to upload a JSON schema. This is mandatory. This is a mandatory thing and you'll have to do it. Now the obvious question comes, Ki, Kunal, how will I get this JSON schema, right? So UiPath has already provided this JSON schema under this. I'll just copy this link in their documentation. So it is present within their documentation. So you just go to this documentation link. Okay. You click here and you see you get this JSON schema here. So you can simply copy this JSON schema here and you can edit it as per your queue items. So whatever you need. So I had 5 columns. So I've just edited it as per my column choice. So I'll just show you my test data or the JSON schema. Okay. So this is my JSON schema. So I had all that 5 columns. So I've just put all the details here. Okay. So just I had the sample, I just edited that particular sample and my JSON schema got ready. So once my JSON schema is ready, what I'll do is I'll simply go to the studio. I'll simply go here and upload that particular JSON schema. Once the JSON schema is there, you simply add. So your test data queue gets created. So I've already created my test data queue. Okay, so my test data queue is ready. So once you upload your JSON schema, see I've uploaded my JSON schema, I'll be able to see this. Like whatever the schema structure is there, that same schema structure is visible here. So you'll be able to see that schema structure. Now your queue is ready. Now you already see that I had 3 items here. So you can see that I have 3 items. So for the queue thing, I've individually showed you now a section for success, one source for business exception, one source for system exception. But for Q1, what I did is I kept one item from each of the section, success, business, and system. So I had all these scenarios here, right? So what I did is I created a XAML to load my queue items. One is add test data queue item and it's bulk add test data queue item, right? So this particular XAML, I just had a input argument called as method. So if the method is blank, then by default it goes and adds only one queue item. Whereas if the method is bulk, then it will add multiple queue items in one shot. Okay, so that is how your queue items get loaded to the queue. And I've just created one variable. So let's go and load the same items once again. Okay, so I already have the 3 items, but I'm just trying to run and show it to you that how that items gets created. So let me run this particular file. Okay, so it says that, see, it added one queue item. So now if I go and refresh the queue, you'll see I'll have 4 queue items. So see, once again that successful scenario got added. See, in the top it got added, same scenario. Now in the same way, I had that scenario like where I can type bulk and I can do that. So if I go here and if I say in the default method that I want a bulk thing, and if I run it, then I'll have the other 2 queue items also getting created. Okay, so it says that number of items got added is 2. So now I'll go and I'll just refresh it. I should have 6 queue items. So as you can see that my queue got populated. Okay, so my queue got populated. Now in the same way, now I have my test data queue. So I'll just simply click here, update test data. Okay, then I can select this test data queue. When you select your option is test data queue, it shows you the queue. So just select your queue. You can also filter out, okay, which items you need, what are the items you need, all that you can do. Okay, for now I'll just use all my 6 items. So I'll just say click on import and my data will get imported. So now see, so uh, here it is showing 3 because I have not imported the latest one. So let's go and update it so that at least, but I hope that I don't get any more surprise saying that it cannot import it. So let's see if it, I'll have to fix my package. Okay, because of that upgrade, something would have happened. But as you see here, previously I had 3 items and all my 3 items were here. So all my items gets loaded here. Okay, so once you have all your items loaded here, what you can do is I can simply run this particular thing and test my items. Okay, one successful, one business exception, other scenario. So that's how I can do that. Okay, so now if I go to my test, you see, okay, so you see that all this things got loaded. See, I don't know, some issue with the package. It was showing 3 items, but when I ran this particular thing, you see that all the 6 items got automatically added and it is working. Okay, so as you see that, okay, all this use cases got tested, everything is working. So these are the different ways you can do your testing. So we have covered up like all our this thing. Now I said you in the middle that there is a difference between the test case here, which is grayed out, and which is in blue color, right? What is that? So if you want to publish your particular test case, okay, say I want to publish my this particular test case, then I need to set it as publishable. Simply right click and set it as publishable. So the moment you do that, it changes into blue color, so that indicates that this particular test case you are going to publish it to the orchestrator. Then what you need to do is, you have this publish button, right? So you just need to, one second. Okay, so actually what happens is, here you get a drop down, okay, for uh, I'm not sure what is going wrong with this project now recently after that upgrade, but here you get a drop down, okay, which says that publish your test case, only publish your particular test case. So the moment you click on that publish your test case, you'll see that all your test cases gets published here. Now I published it sometimes back today in the morning itself. I published it, see, 9 hours ago I published all my details here. So all the test cases that I have there, you can see the name of this particular thing, okay. So and the same name is what I have here, okay. So the same names are here. So the same test case got published here, okay. So once my test cases are published, one interesting thing to keep in mind is, when you publish your test case, whatever the test data you attach to that particular test case is also a part of this particular test case. By default it gets attached to your test case. So here you don't have to come and recreate your test data. So everything is a part of what you publish from the studio. So if you have your test data loaded there, it is automatically a part of your test case, okay. Now if you want to group this particular test case together into a set, then that is your test set, okay. So I already created a test set. So in this particular test set, I have combined all the three test cases, this I've combined all the three. But say your manager says, or your project requirement says that I want a separate test set for all the exception scenarios and one for the successful. So the files was successful. So okay, so what you do is, you just select here, you want to group all your exception test cases together, you just say that add a test set. So then you can simply name your test set, okay, and say that this is all exception test set. So then what happens, this two particular test cases and their data gets clubbed into one test set, and then you can run that particular test set together, okay. So that is what you can do. S- and then you click on the create. The moment you click on this create, what happens is, you will start seeing this test set here. Everything will be start with coming here. Now you can execute it. Now the moment I click on this execute, it will start executing, okay, in my machine, okay. And you see that all these test cases has this data, and whatever the data you see here is all getting populated here. So you'll see that one by one everything is getting executed. Whatever I was doing it in the studio, it gets executed here. So here you don't have to worry about that, because as I said, the test data is already a part of this test case. So by default what is happening is, whatever you had in the studio, the same scenario gets executed here, okay. So you can click on view these assertions, okay, and you can see all your results. Whatever was getting populated in the studio, same you can see here, okay. And if you click on this I button, I think you will be able to see the content of this particular thing, okay. What is the content, what is there. So this is what your test case, test set, activity coverage, your data driven testing, and test set. So it's very easy. So but when you actually go through the documentation or thing, it looks like those are huge concepts, okay. And it may sound little complex initially, and you may not be able to figure out like, okay, what we need to do, how we need to do. But I believe now all of you will be able to easily create your test cases and test sets, the test data very easily within a few minutes of your development, okay. And then you need to do that. Now obvious question, right, Kunal, what you showed us is all with back end automation, right? Because I was simply doing some calculation, numerical calculations, right? What we can do with your UI. So for UI also you have your verification activities, okay. You have your verification activity which can check, okay, your element has exist, or all those things you can use, okay. You can use that verification activities to do that. So that is what your, you'll be able to see verification control activities, okay. So all that particular things are a part of your UI verifications, okay. And what you see here, so for now, I think you are pretty clear like what these verification activities are doing. Although I have not explained it in details, but overall on the high level, I believe that all of you have understood what is the work of the verification activities. Test data queue, I've already shown you what these activities are doing. Whatever is left out, okay, this particular thing, okay, the data, the attach, given name, last name, what is it? It generates synthetic data for you. Set runtime, okay, instead of you typing the data, okay, that the name has to be this, the last name. So what you'll do is, if you use this particular activity, it will randomly generate a name for you. Say you select this name, given name, okay, so sometime it can randomly generate Kunal for you, okay, or sometimes it may randomly generate some other name for you, XYZ for you, or something, right, at runtime, and that becomes your test data. So that is nothing but your synthetic data. So if you see any video in YouTube or any other places, you'll come across this term synthetic data. Now, what is synthetic data? It is very simple. They are simply calling this particular activity, and the output of this activity is a random result. That random result is nothing but your synthetic data, and that synthetic data only they are storing. Now, you can, that synthetic data can be a part of your queue item or something like that, or you create a test case and you attach it. Okay, so that is something what your synthetic data, how your synthetic data is working. Okay, so overall this is how you unit test your things. Okay, and using these concepts only, tomorrow we are going to see how we are going to use our execution templates for your integration testing, or our mock testing, how to do that. So that all is a part of tomorrow's session. Okay, but today we have seen how we can do unit testing, what are the different data driven testing ways, and how we can calculate all this. Okay, with this said, okay, I'm going to close my demo here, and I'm free to answer any of your questions if you have any doubt. Okay, okay, feel free to put your question in the chat and I'm going to answer. I think Mohammed has replied here, and I think Siddesh has also replied, and I think yes. So whenever you are, whether you're a citizen developer or anyone like who is from the, as long as you are doing a testing, as long as you are doing a development, testing is an integral part of it. You cannot use your like, you cannot simply use your development without doing a testing, right? You cannot publish it. So testing is a necessary part of it. Obviously you need to do your unit testing and the integration testing. So so this is what you'll obviously you'll have to use it, and UiPath has created this product so that it benefits all of us. So there is a reason why UiPath has created it, and I've already shown you the benefits of it, like how advantage it can be. So yep, that is needed.
There is another question, Kunal.
Yeah. Um,
So, how to implement test suite from Saurabh? The question is, how to implement test suite of producer consumer project. Testing code for each transaction in consumer process state is my question.
sort of, are you implying to RE framework, right? Where you do a transactional process, right? So that's what I was going to tell you. Like tomorrow's session is more on that, where I'll show you how to use your execution template and your test your RE framework. Because RE framework, you don't do a unit testing, you are actually putting all your other workflows together to do your testing, right? So that is a part of thing. But yes, we can implement the same logic that I've shown you today here. We are going to use this only for your RE framework testing. So whatever you have learned it here, tomorrow we are just going to implement it to a little advanced level, and that's how we do it for your RE framework.
I hope Saurabh you got the answer. Right? Tomorrow's session will have more in detail testing.
Yep. Thanks, Saurav. I hope I'll be able to answer you tomorrow on that. So yep. Anyone else has any other questions, like, and I'll be happy to answer.
I think that is it, Kunal.
Okay. Yes, Siddesh, I think so. So I think with that said, I think we'll stop our session here today, and we'll see that okay, um, how we'll uh, check with tomorrow's session then.
Yep.
Yep. So thank you everyone for joining, and I'll hope I'll be able to answer all your other questions with RE framework tomorrow on that. Thanks, Parth. Parth, thank you for joining the session.
Yep. Thank you, Kunal. Thank you,
Thank
Siddesh.
you.
Yes. Thank you,
Thank you,
guys.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.